The arena floor was covered in dust and small pieces of broken stone. Hanavel stood in the center, breathing hard but not tired. Her blue skin showed no cuts or bruises. Her enemy lay on the ground 10 feet away, not moving but still alive. The crowd was silent. Hanavel looked at her weapon. The shard of storm still glowed with a soft blue light. The blade was made from a piece of a fallen star. Her people had found the star metal thousands of years ago. Only the greatest warriors could use weapons made from it. The blade hummed quietly in her hands like it was singing a song only she could hear. She had won again. This was her 47th victory in the great arena. For 3 years, no one in the Catherian Empire could beat her. She was the strongest warrior her people had ever seen. But as she looked around the silent crowd, she did not feel happy. The warrior on the ground was Commander Baekhyun. He had been the champion before her. He had won over 100 fights. Strong warriors from across the empire came to challenge him. But Hanavel had beaten him in less than 5 minutes. She had not even used her full strength. "Get up," she said to him. Her voice was calm but not kind. "The fight is not over." Baekhyun tried to stand. His legs shook. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. "I cannot," he said. "You have won, Hanavel. You are the champion." Hanavel felt empty inside. She had wanted a real fight. She had hoped Baekhyun would be different. He was famous across 3 star systems, but he was just like all the others. Weak. The crowd began to leave. They walked slowly and quietly. No one cheered. No one threw flowers or called her name. They just went home. Hanavel watched them go and felt more alone than ever. "Impressive as always," said a voice behind her. Hanavel turned around. Commander Takbar stood at the edge of the arena. He was old and gray, but his eyes were sharp. He led the Empire's armies. Next to him were 3 members of the High Council. They wore long robes and serious faces. "Commander," Hanavel said. She bowed her head slightly. "Council members, walk with us," Takbar said. It was not a request. They left the arena and walked through the stone halls of the government building. The walls were covered with paintings of great battles. Catherian warriors fought against monsters and enemies from other worlds. In every painting, the warriors looked brave and strong. Hanavel had seen these paintings many times, but today they looked different. The warriors in the paintings had opponents worth fighting. "You have a problem," said Council Member Jihan. She was the oldest of the 3. Her voice was like ice. "Your strength is too great." Hanavel stopped walking. "Too great? I am what every Catherian warrior should be. I am what our people need." "No," said Council Member Seojin. "You are what our people fear. You make our other warriors look like children. Young fighters see you win and think they are worthless. Our enemies see you fight and wonder if we have others like you." "But I fight for the Empire," Hanavel said. "I bring honor to our people." "You bring attention," said the 3rd council member, Hyunwoo. "The wrong kind of attention. Other species are starting to ask questions. They want to know how strong we really are. They want to test us." Takbar put his hand on Hanavel's shoulder. "You are the greatest warrior in our history, but you are also dangerous. Not to our enemies, but to our way of life." They reached a large room with tall windows. Outside, Hanavel could see the city. Millions of Catherians lived and worked in the towers below. Most of them would never fight a real battle. They made things and sold things and raised families. They were not warriors, but they were her people. "What do you want from me?" Hanavel asked. "We want you to leave," Jihan said. The words hit Hanavel like a physical blow. "Leave? You mean exile?" "We mean opportunity," Seojin said. "The galaxy is full of warriors from other species. Find them, fight them. Prove that Catherians are the strongest in the universe. And if I refuse, then you will stay here and fight no one," Hyunwoo said. "No warrior will challenge you anymore. You have already beaten our best. The others are too afraid to try." Hanavel looked out the window again. She thought about spending the rest of her life in the arena, fighting weaklings who gave up before the battle really started. She thought about training sessions where other warriors watched her from far away, too scared to practice with her. She thought about eating alone and sleeping alone and living alone because everyone was afraid of her strength. "Where would I go?" she asked. "There is a new species," Takbar said. "They call themselves humans. They have started building colonies in the outer systems. Our scouts say they are weak. No proper warrior culture. No advanced weapons. But they seem to survive somehow. Weak opponents are not what I need," Hanavel said. "Perhaps," Jihan said, "but they might lead you to stronger ones." The galaxy is large. There must be warriors somewhere who can give you a real fight. Hanavel closed her eyes and felt the weight of the shard of storms on her back. The weapon had been passed down through her family for generations. Her grandfather had carried it. Her great-grandfather before him. All of them had been great warriors, but none of them had been exiled. When do I leave? She asked. Tomorrow, Seojin said. A ship is being prepared. You may take your weapon and personal items. Nothing else. And if I find worthy opponents, then you will have proven your worth, Yunwoo said. And perhaps one day you may return. But Hanavel heard the truth in their voices. They did not expect her to return. They wanted her gone forever. She was too strong for her own people to handle. That night, Hanavel packed her few belongings. She had weapons and armor, but not much else. She had spent so much time training and fighting that she had never learned to make friends or build a life outside the arena. Her small apartment felt empty and cold. She held the shard of storms in her hands and watched the blue light pulse slowly. We will find real opponents, she told the weapon. We will find warriors who can make us work for victory. The next morning, she walked to the spaceport. No one came to see her off. No one wished her luck or told her to be careful. She was the greatest warrior her people had ever produced, and they were happy to see her go. The ship was small but fast. It had enough food and fuel to reach the human colonies. As Hanavel lifted off from her homeworld, she looked down at the planet where she had been born and trained and exiled. She felt no sadness, only anger and determination. Humans, she said to herself, we will see how weak you really are. 3 weeks later, Hanavel's ship dropped out of hyperspace near a small blue planet. Her sensors showed cities and ships moving around the world. The humans had built more than she expected. Their technology looked different from Catherian designs, but it seemed to work well. She had studied the human files during her journey. The report said humans were new to space travel. They had only left their homeworld 50 years ago. They had no warrior class and no proper military tradition. They solved problems by talking instead of fighting. The Catherian scouts who wrote the report seemed confused by this. Hanavel requested permission to land at the largest settlement. The humans responded quickly and politely. They gave her coordinates and asked if she needed any help. No questions about her weapons or her intentions. No demands to state her business. Either they were very trusting or very foolish. The colony was called New Seoul. From the air, it looked like a collection of white and silver buildings connected by roads and bridges. Gardens grew between the structures. People walked in the open without fear. Ships came and went from the landing port without military escorts. Hanavel landed her ship and stepped outside. The air was clean and warm. The gravity was lighter than her homeworld, which would make her faster and stronger. Several humans approached her landing pad. They moved slowly and kept their hands visible. None of them carried weapons. Welcome to New Seoul, said a human male with gray hair and kind eyes. I'm Captain Minho. I run freight between the colonies. He was older than the others, with lines on his face that showed he had lived through difficult times. But he smiled like he was meeting an old friend. I am Hanavel of the Catherian Empire, she said. She stood straight and proud, letting them see her weapons and armor. I have come to meet your warriors. The humans looked at each other. A woman with short black hair stepped forward. I'm Yuna, the colony administrator. We don't really have warriors here. May I ask why you're looking for them? Hanavel studied their faces. They seemed genuinely confused by her request. All species have warriors. Who defends your people when enemies attack? We have peacekeepers, Minho said. And emergency responders. But we try to solve problems without fighting when possible. And when fighting is necessary, we handle it, Yuna said simply. But it doesn't happen often. Most people prefer to talk. Hanavel felt disappointed and frustrated. These humans looked soft and weak. Their clothes were comfortable but not protective. Their buildings were pretty but not fortified. They acted like the galaxy was a safe place where nothing bad ever happened. Show me your settlement, she said. I want to understand your people. Captain Minho nodded. Of course. Would you like something to eat first? The journey from Kither space is long. Hanavel was surprised that he knew where she had come from. You know of my people? We know of many species, Yuna said. We try to learn about our neighbors. Knowledge helps prevent misunderstandings. They walked through the colony together. Hanavel saw humans working in gardens and workshops. Children played in safe areas while adults watched them with gentle eyes. Old people sat in the shade and told stories. Everyone seemed relaxed and happy. "Where are your defenses?" Hanavel asked. "You're looking at them," Minho said. He pointed to sensors mounted on buildings and small drones flying overhead. "Early warning systems. Shields that can protect the whole colony. Emergency shelters underground. And your weapons?" "We have them," Yuna said. "But we prefer not to display them. Weapons can make people nervous." Hanavel stopped walking. "Your people should be nervous. The galaxy is dangerous. There are species out there that would destroy this place for fun." "We know," said an old human man who had been listening nearby. He walked over with slow, careful steps. His hair was white and his hands were wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "I'm Kyung-ho. I've been around long enough to see what's out there." "Then why do your people act like children?" Hanavel asked. "Why do they not prepare for war?" Kyung-ho smiled sadly. "Because we've already had our wars. On our homeworld, we fought each other for thousands of years. We learned something important from all that fighting." "What did you learn?" "That the strongest warriors aren't always the ones who win wars. Sometimes they're the ones who prevent them." Hanavel felt anger rising in her chest. "That is the talk of cowards. Strength is what matters. Power is what keeps people safe, is it?" Kyung-ho asked. "You are clearly very strong. Your weapon is magnificent. Your skills are probably beyond anything we could match. But are your people safe? Are they happy?" The question hit Hanavel like a slap. She thought about the empty arena and the silent crowds. She thought about the council members who feared her strength. She thought about her lonely apartment and her journey into exile. "My people are secure because of warriors like me," she said. "But not because of you specifically," Minho said gently, "or you would still be with them." Hanavel's hand moved to her weapon. The shard of storms hummed with energy, responding to her emotions. The humans stepped back slightly but did not run or call for help. They just watched her with patient eyes. "I challenge your strongest fighter," she said loudly. "Someone must defend your people's honor." "Our honor doesn't depend on fighting," Yuna said. "We find honor in building and creating and helping each other." "Then you have no honor at all," Hanavel said. She drew the shard of storms. The blue blade sang as it cut through the air. "I will show you what real strength looks like." She swung the weapon at a nearby statue. The metal sculpture, which probably weighed several tons, split in half with a sound like thunder. The pieces fell to the ground with loud crashes. People nearby stopped what they were doing and turned to look. "I could destroy this entire colony," Hanavel said. "Your pretty buildings, your gardens, your peace. All of it would fall before my blade." The humans did not panic. They did not scream or run away. They just stood there looking sad and disappointed, like she was a child having a tantrum. "We believe you," Kyung-ho said quietly. "But destroying things doesn't make you strong. It just makes you dangerous." "Someone will fight me," Hanavel said, "or I will keep breaking things until someone does." Yuna sighed and touched a device on her wrist. "Jiwon, we have a situation at the main plaza. Can you come?" "Who is Jiwon?" Hanavel demanded. "Someone who might accept your challenge," Minho said. "But I should warn you, he doesn't like to fight. Then he is weak." "No," Kyung-ho said. "He's probably the strongest person in this colony. But his strength doesn't come from his weapons or his anger. It comes from what he's willing to protect." Hanavel waited in the plaza, her weapon ready. She had traveled across the galaxy to find worthy opponents. These humans seemed determined to disappoint her. But perhaps this Jiwon would be different. Perhaps he would give her the real fight she needed. Around her, the humans continued their daily lives. They worked and talked and laughed, seemingly unbothered by her presence or her threats. It was almost like they knew something she did not. Like they had a secret that made them confident even in the face of superior force. She would find out soon enough. When Jiwon arrived, she would test the true strength of humanity. And then she would understand why her people's scouts had been so confused by this strange species that refused to act like proper warriors. 20 minutes later, a man walked into the plaza. Hanavel expected to see a warrior in armor carrying powerful weapons. Instead, she saw someone who looked like he fixed broken machines for a living. Jiwon was average height with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore simple work clothes that were clean but showed signs of use. His hands had small scars from working with tools. He carried a bag of equipment over one shoulder, but no visible weapons. He looked like he had come straight from his job without stopping to prepare for battle. "You must be Hanavel," he said. His voice was quiet and polite. I heard you wanted to fight someone. Hanavel stared at him in disbelief. You are their champion? You are the strongest warrior they could find? I'm not a warrior, Jiwan said. He set down his bag and looked around the plaza. I maintain the water recycling systems and power generators. Sometimes I fix broken things. Then why are you here? Because Yuna said people might get hurt if no one talks to you. And talking doesn't seem to be working. Hanavel felt insulted. They sent a repairman to fight me? Do they think I am a joke? Several humans had gathered to watch. They stood at a safe distance but did not seem frightened. Old Kyung-ho walked over to Hanavel while Jiwan checked his equipment. May I tell you something about humans? Kyung-ho asked. Speak quickly, old man. I have a fight to finish. We learned something important about strength during our wars. The most dangerous fighters aren't always the ones who look for battles. Sometimes they're the ones who only fight when they have no choice. Philosophy, Hanavel said dismissively. Your people talk too much and act too little. Perhaps. But consider this. Jiwan has never lost a fight he couldn't avoid. And he's avoided many fights that others might have chosen. Hanavel looked at the maintenance worker again. He was stretching his arms and checking the ground for obstacles. He moved with efficient, practiced motions like someone who planned everything carefully. What makes him special? She asked. He knows what he's protecting, Kyung-ho said. Every person in this colony. Every child playing in the gardens. Every old couple sitting in the shade. That knowledge gives him strength that anger never could. We will see, Hanavel said. She walked to the center of the plaza and drew the Shard of Storms. The blue blade hummed with power, casting shifting light on the ground around her. Jiwan approached slowly. He had removed his work jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His movements were careful and deliberate, like he was solving a puzzle instead of preparing for combat. I don't want to hurt you, he said. You could not hurt me if you tried, Hanavel replied. But I will hurt you. I will show your people what happens when they refuse to take strength seriously. Okay, Jiwan said simply. If that's what you need to do. Hanavel attacked without warning. She moved faster than human eyes could follow, her blade cutting through the air in a pattern designed to end fights quickly. The strike would have killed most opponents before they knew the battle had started. But Jiwan was not there when her weapon arrived. He had moved just enough to avoid the attack, his body flowing like water around her strike. Hanavel spun and attacked again, then again. Each time Jiwan simply was not where her blade wanted to go. Stand still and fight, she shouted. I am fighting, Jiwan said calmly. Just not the way you expected. Hanavel increased her speed. She had trained for decades to move faster than thought, to strike before opponents could react. Her blade became a blur of blue light, cutting patterns in the air that should have been impossible to escape. But Jiwan kept moving. He did not try to block her attacks or counter them. He just stayed one step ahead, reading her movements like he was reading a technical manual. When she struck high, he was low. When she cut left, he moved right. He made it look easy. The watching humans began to murmur among themselves. They were not cheering for their champion or booing his opponent. They just watched with interest like they were seeing a demonstration of some natural principle. Why won't you attack me? Hanavel demanded. She was breathing harder now, frustrated by her inability to connect with her target. Because I don't need to, Jiwan said. You're attacking the air. I'm not in any danger. I am the greatest warrior in Catherian history. I have defeated champions from across the empire. I believe you. But this isn't about being the greatest warrior. This is about keeping people safe. Hanavel stopped attacking and stared at him. You think you're keeping people safe by running away from me? I'm keeping people safe by not giving you a reason to escalate this fight. If I attack you, you'll fight harder. People might get hurt from the energy discharge of your weapon or the debris from our battle. So you are a coward. Maybe, Jiwan said, but I'm a coward who's keeping 3,000 colonists alive. Hanavel felt rage building inside her chest. This human was making her look foolish. He was treating her like a problem to be managed instead of a warrior to be respected. Worse, his calm acceptance of her accusations made her feel like a child throwing a tantrum. I will show you real power, she said. She raised the Shard of Storms above her head and channeled all her strength into the weapon. The blue light grew brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at directly. Energy crackled around the blade like lightning. Now you will see what Catherian warriors can do, she said. She brought the weapon down in a strike that could split mountains. The blade cut through the air with a sound like tearing space. Energy poured from the weapon in waves that made the ground shake and the air shimmer, and Jiwon caught the blade between his bare hands. The Shard of Storms, forged from star metal and enhanced by generations of Catherian technology, stopped completely. The unstoppable force met an immovable object, and the immovable object won. Hanavel stared in shock. Impossible. Not impossible, Jiwon said quietly. His hands were pressed against the flat sides of her blade, holding it steady despite the enormous force she was applying. Just unexpected. How? She whispered. Because I have to, he said. Because there are people behind me who don't deserve to die because you're angry. Because someone has to be strong enough to say no when strength is used the wrong way. Hanavel poured more power into her weapon. The blade vibrated with contained energy, trying to complete its strike. But Jiwon's hands did not move. He held her ultimate attack as easily as he might hold a broken tool he was examining. Your weapon is impressive, he said. Your skill is remarkable. But you're fighting for the wrong reasons. You're trying to prove something that doesn't need proving. I am proving that I am strong. You already proved that. You've been proving it for years. But what good has it done? Has it made you happy? Has it made your people love you? Has it made the galaxy a better place? Hanavel felt something crack inside her chest. Not her body, but something deeper. Something she had built her entire life around. I am a warrior, she said. Fighting is what I do. It is who I am. No, Jiwon said gently. Fighting is something you're very good at. But it's not who you are. Who you are is the person underneath all that training and anger and need to prove yourself. The Shard of Storms began to vibrate more violently. Small cracks appeared along the edges of the blade where Jiwon's hands touched it. The weapon was not designed to be held by anything, and the strain of the impossible situation was beginning to show. Let go, Hanavel said urgently. The weapon is not stable. It could explode. Will you stop trying to hurt people if I let go? Hanavel looked around the plaza. The humans were still watching, but now they looked concerned instead of curious, not for their own safety but for hers. They were worried about the warrior who had threatened their home. She began, then stopped. She did not know what she wanted anymore. Victory felt meaningless when her opponent refused to be defeated. Proving her strength felt pointless when no one was impressed by it. Yes, she said finally. I will stop. But as she spoke, the Shard of Storms gave one final violent tremor. The ancient blade, pushed beyond its limits by the impossible situation, began to shatter in Jiwon's hands. The sound was like a star dying. The Shard of Storms, which had been passed down through generations of Catherian warriors, cracked along its length with a noise that made everyone in the plaza cover their ears. Blue light poured from the fractures like liquid fire. Jiwon's eyes widened as he felt the weapon breaking apart in his hands. Everyone get back, he shouted to the watching humans. Now, but he did not let go. Even as the ancient blade split into pieces, even as energy discharged in dangerous bursts, Jiwon held on. He squeezed the fragments together, containing the explosion with his bare hands while people ran for cover. Hanavel stared in horror as her family's weapon destroyed itself. Each crack that appeared in the star metal felt like a wound in her own body. The blade had been part of her identity for so long that she could not imagine existing without it. Release it, she cried. You will be killed. Not if I can help it, Jiwon said through gritted teeth. Sweat ran down his face as he fought to contain the energies trying to escape. Is there a way to safely discharge this power? No, Hanavel said. Once the containment field fails, the energy will explode outward. Nothing can stop it. Then I guess I'll have to absorb it, Jiwon said. Before Hanavel could ask what he meant, Jiwon did something impossible. Instead of trying to contain the energy, he drew it into himself. The blue fire that had been pouring from the broken weapon began to flow into his hands, up his arms and into his body. The light under his skin was visible for several seconds. Jiwon glowed like he had swallowed a small star. Then the energy faded, absorbed completely. The broken pieces of the Shard of Storms went dark and fell to the ground with soft metallic sounds. Jiwon swayed on his feet but remained standing. His hands were burned where he had held the weapon, but he was alive. More importantly, everyone else was alive too. Hanavel dropped to her knees beside the fragments of her blade. She picked up the largest piece, which was no bigger than her thumb. The star metal was cold and lifeless. Whatever had made it special was gone forever. My weapon, she whispered. My grandfather's weapon. My family's honor. I'm sorry, Jiwon said. He knelt beside her, his burned hands shaking slightly. I didn't mean for it to break. I was just trying to stop the fight. Hanavel looked at him with tears in her eyes. You destroyed everything I am. No, I didn't. I just destroyed a tool you were using incorrectly. You do not understand. This blade was my connection to my ancestors. It was proof of my worth. Without it, I am nothing. Dr. Somin, the colony's medical officer, approached carefully. She was a small woman with gentle hands and intelligent eyes. May I check your injuries? She asked Jiwon. I'm fine, he said, but he let her examine his hands anyway. These burns are serious, Dr. Somin said. What kind of energy were you exposed to? Star metal discharge, Hanavel said numbly. It should have killed him instantly. No living being can absorb that much power and survive. But he did survive, Dr. Somin said. That's what matters. Captain Minho walked over with several other colonists. They looked concerned but not afraid. Is everyone safe? He asked. Yes, Jiwon said. The energy has been neutralized. How? Hanavel demanded. How did you do what you just did? Humans are supposed to be weak. You have no special powers, no advanced technology. You should not be able to catch a star-forged blade, much less absorb its energy. Jiwon sat down heavily on a nearby bench. Dr. Somin began treating his hands with a medical device that reduced the pain and started healing the damaged tissue. We're not weak, he said quietly. We're just different from what you expected. Explain. Captain Minho sat down across from them. His weathered face was serious but kind. Humans have encountered other warrior species before you. We've learned some things about ourselves in the process. What things? That we're much more stubborn than we look. When something we care about is threatened, we become very difficult to stop. But the energy discharge. Humans are adaptable, Dr. Somin said as she worked on Jiwon's hands. Our bodies and minds can handle more stress than most species realize. We evolved on a dangerous world. We had to learn to survive things that would kill others. Hanavel shook her head. That still does not explain how he caught my blade. Old Kyung-ho approached the group slowly. He had watched the entire fight from a safe distance, but now he looked like he wanted to share something important. May I tell you about our history? He asked Hanavel. More philosophy, more truth. When humans first left our homeworld, we met a species called the Vorthak. They were warrior philosophers who believed strength came from conquering others. They challenged us to ritual combat. And you lost? Actually, we won. Not because we were stronger or faster or better armed. We won because we refused to give up. Every time they knocked us down, we got back up. Every time they seemed to win, we found another way to keep fighting. Kyung-ho sat down beside Hanavel. The Vorthak were impressed by our persistence. They asked us what gave us such determination. We told them it was love. Love. Love for our families. Love for our friends. Love for our way of life. When you fight out of love instead of anger, you become much harder to defeat. Hanavel looked at Jiwon, who was listening quietly while Dr. Somin finished treating his injuries. You fought me out of love? I fought you to protect people I care about, he said. That's not the same as wanting to hurt you. I never wanted you to be injured or humiliated. I just wanted you to stop threatening innocent people. But you destroyed my weapon. You took away everything that made me special. No, Jiwon said firmly. Your weapon was just a tool. What made you special was your skill, your training, your determination. Those things are still there. But without the Shard of Storms, I cannot prove my worth. Maybe that's the point, Dr. Somin said gently. Maybe worth isn't something you prove. Maybe it's something you demonstrate by how you treat others. Hanavel stood up and walked away from the group. She needed to think. Everything she had believed about strength and honor had been challenged in the space of an hour. A human with no warrior training had stopped her ultimate attack and destroyed her legendary weapon. But he had done it to protect others, not to prove his own power. She looked back at the colonists. They were cleaning up the debris from her demonstration earlier, working together to repair the damage she had caused. No one seemed angry with her. They just looked sad that the situation had gone so badly. Jiwon approached her carefully. His hands were bandaged, but he moved normally. Are you okay? He asked. How can you ask me that? I threatened your people. I tried to hurt you. You should hate me. I don't hate you. I think you're confused and angry and looking for something you haven't found yet. But that doesn't make you evil. What does it make me? Human, Jiwon said with a small smile. Just from a different planet. Hanavel felt something shift inside her mind. For the first time in years, she was not thinking about her next battle or her next victory. She was thinking about what came after strength. What came after proving herself. What came after the fighting was done. I do not know what to do now, she admitted. That's okay, Jiwon said. Neither did we when we first left our homeworld. But we figured it out as we went along. Will you help me? If you want help, yes. But first you have to decide what kind of person you want to be now that your old identity is gone. Hanavel looked at the broken pieces of her weapon one more time. Then she looked at the humans who had shown her kindness despite her threats. For the first time in her life, she began to imagine a future that did not revolve around combat. It was a frightening thought, but it was also strangely hopeful. 2 weeks later, Hanavel sat in the colony's workshop learning to use human tools. Her hands, which had been trained to wield weapons of war, were now learning to build things instead of destroying them. It was harder than she had expected. You are holding the torch too close, said Daeho, a young human who worked as an apprentice engineer. He was barely 20 years old, but he showed no fear when correcting the former champion of an alien empire. The metal needs to heat slowly or it will become brittle. Hanavel adjusted her grip and tried again. She was attempting to forge a new blade, but not for fighting. This would be a tool for cutting metal in construction projects. Her first dozen attempts had failed badly, but Daeho patiently showed her the correct technique each time. Why do you want to learn this? Daeho asked as they worked. You could probably convince the colony leaders to give you a ship and supplies to go anywhere in the galaxy. Where would I go? Hanavel asked. I spent my whole life searching for worthy opponents. Now I have found them, and they do not want to fight. Maybe that means you were searching for the wrong thing. Hanavel paused in her work. In the past 2 weeks, she had heard similar observations from many colonists. Humans seemed to enjoy pointing out the obvious truths that everyone else somehow missed. What should I have been searching for? I do not know, Daeho said honestly. That is something you have to figure out for yourself. But maybe start with what makes you happy instead of what makes you strong. Through the workshop windows, Hanavel could see the colony going about its daily business. Children played in the gardens while their parents worked nearby. Old people sat in the shade and told stories to anyone who would listen. Jiwon was fixing a water pump on the far side of the plaza, surrounded by helpers who handed him tools and asked questions about how the system worked. 2 weeks ago, she had thought these people were weak because they chose cooperation over conflict. Now she was beginning to understand that their choice required a different kind of strength. It took courage to trust others. It took discipline to build instead of destroy. It took wisdom to solve problems with words instead of weapons. Hanavel, called a familiar voice. She turned to see Dr. Soman approaching the workshop. The medical officer had been checking on her regularly, not because she was injured, but because she was concerned about Hanavel's mental state. How are you feeling today? Dr. Soman asked. Frustrated, Hanavel admitted. I am not good at making things. My hands know how to fight, but they do not know how to create. That will come with time. Learning new skills is always difficult at first. How long did it take Jiwon to become so capable? Dr. Soman smiled. Jiwon has been training since he was a child, but not in the way you might think. He grew up on a frontier world where people had to work together to survive. He learned to fix things because broken machines meant people died. He learned to fight because sometimes fighting was the only way to protect others. He said he was not a warrior. He is not, in the traditional sense. He does not seek battle or train for personal glory. But when people he cares about are threatened, he becomes something quite formidable. Hanavel set down her tools and walked to the window. I have been thinking about my homeworld, about why the council really exiled me. What did you conclude? They were afraid of me, but not because I was strong. They were afraid because I had no purpose beyond fighting. A warrior without a cause is dangerous to everyone, including her own people. Dr. Soman nodded thoughtfully. And now? Now I am trying to find a different purpose. But I do not know if I can change who I am. You are not changing who you are. You are discovering who you could become. Before Hanavel could respond, an alarm began sounding across the colony. It was not the sharp, urgent sound of immediate danger, but the steady tone that meant everyone should pay attention to an important announcement. Yuna's voice came over the communication system. All residents, we have received a distress signal from a mining station in the outer system. They are under attack by raiders and requesting assistance. Emergency response teams report to the landing bay immediately. Hanavel felt her warrior instincts activate. Raiders, this is what your people need me for. I can help fight them. Maybe, Dr. Soman said carefully. But let's see what the colony leaders decide first. They hurried to the landing bay where a crowd was gathering. Captain Minho was preparing his ship for departure, while Jiwan and several other volunteers loaded emergency supplies. Yuna stood on a platform coordinating the rescue effort. The mining station has 57 people, Yuna announced, families with children. The raiders have superior numbers and firepower, but they are probably just after valuable minerals. If we can evacuate the miners safely, the raiders will likely take what they want and leave. What about fighting them? Asked a young colonist. Only if necessary to protect lives, Yuna replied. Our goal is rescue, not combat. Hanavel pushed through the crowd. I can defeat these raiders easily. My skills? Your skills could be very helpful, Yuna agreed. But we need to do this carefully. If we come in fighting, the raiders might hurt the hostages out of spite. Then what do you propose? Jiwan approached with his equipment bag. We go in quietly. Disable their ships if possible. Extract the miners without starting a war. And if they fight back, then we fight back, but only as much as necessary to complete the mission. Hanavel felt confused. You are choosing the harder path deliberately. Why not simply destroy the raiders and be done with it? Because some of those raiders might be desperate people who turned to crime because they had no other choice, Dr. Sumin said. Because unnecessary violence creates cycles of revenge. Because taking a life should never be easy, even when it is necessary. Your people are very strange, Hanavel said. Yes, Jiwan agreed with a smile. But it works for us. Captain Minho fired up his ship's engines. We leave in 5 minutes. Anyone coming should board now. Hanavel looked at the rescue team assembling around her. They were not warriors in any sense she understood. They were engineers and medics and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to risk their lives for strangers. But as she watched them prepare, she saw the same determination she had once seen in elite fighters. I would like to help, she said. Good, Yuna replied. But you follow our rules. No killing unless lives are in immediate danger. No destroying things unless absolutely necessary. The mission is rescue, not revenge, I understand. Do you? Jiwan asked seriously. Because once we are out there, we need to trust each other completely. Can you put the safety of the miners above your desire to prove your strength? Hanavel thought about the question carefully. 2 weeks ago, she would have been offended by the suggestion that she cared more about personal glory than innocent lives. Now she recognized the truth in his concern. Yes, she said finally. I can do that. Then welcome to the team, Captain Minho called from the pilot's seat. Let's go save some people. As the ship lifted off from New Seoul, Hanavel felt something she had not experienced in years. She was part of a group working toward a common goal, not to conquer or dominate, but to protect and serve. Her strength was still there, but now it had a purpose beyond itself. Through the viewport, she could see the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, people were in danger and needed help. For the first time in her life, Hanavel was going into battle not to prove she was the strongest warrior in the galaxy, but to demonstrate that strength meant nothing without compassion. She looked at her hands, which were learning to build instead of destroy. Soon they might have to fight again, but now she understood the difference between fighting for glory and fighting for others. The Shard of Storms was gone forever, but perhaps she had found something more valuable in its place. Are you ready? Jiwan asked. Hanavel smiled, and for the first time in years the expression felt natural and genuine. Yes, I am ready. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying a former exile toward her first real battle. Not against enemies she wanted to conquer, but alongside friends she had learned to trust. It was the beginning of a very different kind of strength.